Welcome, one and all, to the Hollywood Backlot with Lou and you. My name is VashSky. Welcome to another amazing show talking about the Glitz, the Glamour, the Grammys. Yes, the Grammys are part of Hollywood's amazing legacy as well, and we'll be getting into all of that great stuff. But first, the amazing, the one, the only, the person that brings you all here, Lou Wasserman's Ghost. Lou, what is going on, good sir?
You know, every time you describe me as amazing, I feel like I should pull a rabbit out of a hat or cut a girl in half or something. It sounds like a magician line, you know?
Yes.
Milton Berle famously said that, he said, with my luck, if I was a magician and cut a girl in half, I'd get the half that eats. So anyway, but that was Uncle Milty, you know? A marathon.
What a simpler time, I suppose.
Oh, relax and fun. I'm seeing.
Oh boy!
Looks like people are looking for movie picks.
Yes, let's go ahead and
relax and fun. Well, yeah. Well, we all need a little relaxation after the tensions of the current political moment. I think it's time to kick back and get ready for the holidays, or at least turkey.
Yes. I think 2 days from now, I think we'll all. I don't know. I mean,
don't predict all. Some of them.
I won't predict all, but at least there will be a little bit of a breather in terms of just the I don't know, the tensions leading up to that day. Obviously, the commercials and the text we were just going over.
Yeah, my God, the level of they're eating the dogs, you know, and they're eating the cats.
cats and dogs. Oh boy. No, I mean it's just like the text, the spam, the mailers, the everything like that. It's just it's so in your face, it's so blatant. And I just want to, relax just a little bit. Just
yeah.
And hopefully we can begin that process here with you with Hollywood Backlot with Lou and you, in which we can take your mind off of things for just a little while. Yeah, I know. Karen Owen. Squirrels now. Oh boy. It's all become so crazy. Let's see here. Terry Scott, good afternoon. When are we getting a Remo Williams genre, guys? Interesting.
Well, I have a close personal tie to that, so. Yes, indeed. When I met my wife in a plain vanilla chat room on CompuServe long ago, my nom de screen was Chun, Master of Sinanju. So, although, one of the two authors of the books, I don't know if you know this, Terry, but there are over 150 books in the series published in, I'm told, 80 languages all around the world. And they're all under the name The Destroyer. So naturally, Hollywood, when it goes to make a movie, calls it Remo Williams, The Adventure Begins, as if there wasn't anything more cumbersome than that. So
maybe that wasn't the best choice.
Well, one of the two guys that wrote the books, he said that Cure, the agency that Remo and Chun work for, is supposed to be fighting real villains, and in the movie version, it was more a guy that the SEC would go after than them. So it had some weakness, but it was a great movie anyway, and I love it. And as you've seen, the poster of it is on a wall behind me. So
yes, I have seen that poster.
And Karen, was it Karen?
Yes.
Juliet, how about that? How about Remo Williams' The Adventure Begins? Fred Ward and Joel Grey and Wilfred Brimley, and long before she ever took the helm of a starship. Now my mind goes blank. Janeway. Why can't I think of her name? But you'll recognize her. Oh, Falling Down. Yeah, that was fun. Last night, the genre guys did, and it'll be out in a couple of days. For Halloween, although we missed it by a couple of days, we did Sleepy Hollow.
Ooh.
And in the course of researching it, I discovered some interesting history. because I realized I knew that story and of the Headless Horseman and all that. And I knew that they were written by a guy named Washington Irving, but I didn't know exactly who he was. Yeah, King Mulgrew, right. Anyway, Washington Irving, among his other claims to fame, he's the guy who named New York Gotham in one of his early writings. And he said it was Old Dutch for Goat Town. So that kind of stands the whole Batman reverence for that name on its end, doesn't it? He also invented Knickerbocker. The New York Knicks, the basketball team, are called the Knickerbockers. And what it was, this guy, he was really the first person to make popular fiction a job, a real revenue-producing profession. And how he did it, he wrote a book of short stories and tales supposedly by this guy, Knickerbocker. And to promote the book, he put ads in the newspaper asking anybody that's saying that the manuscript, which was supposed to be published, which hadn't quite come out yet, got lost, and asking people, if you ever see this book that says it's by Knickerbocker, get in touch with me. And it stuck. And he wrote biographies of Commodore Perry and George Washington and all kinds of famous people. He served in various government posts at home and abroad. He was admired by all the great authors of his day. And in his spare time, he wrote about Headless Horseman. Anyway, so we talked about that and much more about Sleepy Hollow. But
I didn't know a lot of it. So that's... I learned something new
until I
every
looked.
day, I guess.
So,
speaking of the genre guys, though, we do have a couple of great genre guys that just made their way to the channel, actually.
Which ones?
Well, for one, Bridge of Spies.
Oh, yeah.
That was the very latest.
I had forgotten until I watched it again to do that show how really good it is. Yes. How really, really good it is. And also, what a big movie it is. I remembered it basically because of their personalities, Hanks and Ryland. But there's so much more to that picture. That's a good one. That's one for you.
I was blown away by how good it was back when I saw it, and this was 2015. Yeah, I'm a lot more, let's say, savvy when it comes to the political entanglements of the Cold War era than I was than I am now versus where I was. And going back to grab the screenshots and so forth that you see during the genre guys has it's produced in 2-3PO, I was blown away, like you, Lou, at just how well done that film was, how well constructed it was. Steven Spielberg takes what is a kind of a complicated subject, and I think you talked about it on the genre guys itself, and really distills it down in a way that anybody can understand.
Yeah. Even people who didn't live through Duck and Cover and all those wonders of the Cold War.
Yeah. Just a really amazing piece. And I was, it was awesome to bring it to everybody here. Finally, I'm trying to catch up on the genre guys. We had a lapse there, so trying to get ahead of that. So that's why you have a few more genre guys hitting 2-3PO than otherwise would. Next one, by the way, coming out Wednesday, Demolition Man.
Oh,
get your Taco Bell ready, folks.
Oh boy. Hey, who was it? Juliet, you're the one looking for something that's just pure diversionary fun? There you go. Demolition Man. Action, sure. Violence, sure. But funny. God, is it funny. And
it's hilarious.
And huge. I mean, I've forgotten how huge that opening sequence is. And a lot of people apparently at the studio said, why do we need this huge pyrotechnic-filled multi-people scene that has really nothing to do with the contemporary plot of the movie except to set up the characters?
Sure.
And the writer said, you can't understand Oz until you've been to Kansas. In other words, you needed that to get the premise of why they would try so hard to try to create an impossibility, a world without violence. So anyway.
You know what? That's a great point. That's a great. I never really thought about it like that, but the steps that they take in the contemporary setting of that film are pretty dystopian, and you kind of need that setup in order to get you there. Is what you're saying there.
The other thing about that movie,
Mm-hmm.
it didn't cost anything compared to what it looks like it should have cost, and even then, it went. I think it was 6 or 7 days over schedule because of rain and all that. But they worked on the script for 6 years before they set action on the first piece of film. And if a certain studio we all know and used to love did that a little more often, they wouldn't be so broke. But anyway,
Yes.
if you don't know how to use the 3 seashells, you definitely need to watch Demolition Man.
You have to watch Demolition Man. It's required viewing. By the way, really great performance by Wesley Snipes.
Oh yeah. You
know, we've seen Stallone do some great stuff, but Wesley and Stallone I thought were just brilliant, and you forget how great of an actor Wesley was. Until you see that movie, and it's like
real life got in the way.
Yeah.
Well, anyway.
Yep, for sure, right? Jillian, I believe, asks, I'll keep waiting for memberships on the channel. Yes, Jillian, they are coming, and they're coming in December. Yes. So memberships will be activated in the kind of the winter 2024, 2025, thereabouts. And I was just actually discussing with Pro what we could actually offer in terms of memberships, and how can we provide you guys, the subscribers to this channel, the content that you so desperately crave, and make sure that you're getting value for your money. So we are doing memberships, and it's going to be awesome. I cannot wait, and I'm doing everything I can to set up the channel in order to deliver that content to you. So keep on the lookout right there. An announcement is forthcoming, but you can expect it winter of this year. So very, very cool.
Or the way things tend to go around here, 5th coming or 6th coming or something.
Oh boy. So such good stuff. Well, I promised you guys talking about the Grammys on T3PO Live. We couldn't, unfortunately, get to it, so we're going to get to it right here, because you know what? It's the history of all of this stuff is incontrovertibly linked with Hollywood in a way that I don't think a lot of people maybe recognize off the bat. We obviously have heard of the Oscars, the Golden Globes, and it's like, okay, those are definitely linked with Hollywood, but the Grammys just as much, maybe even more so, because I didn't know this, Lou, but apparently to tell the story of the Grammys, you got to start by talking about the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
Everybody out there knows what that is, right?
I hope so.
Hands. It's a bunch of stars. I used to joke. Well, maybe it's a safe joke. It just, we're all friends. I used to joke and say that I was that very rare thing, the last heterosexual man in Hollywood, and they were going to give me a star once they figured out what symbol to put in the middle of it. Because if you look at the stars, you'll see that they have a TV, and they have a radio, and they have a movie, and they have to tell you what area somebody mostly worked in. But for these super talented people who worked in many, they give more of them. That's the official naming one with all the symbols.
You can kind of see the symbols right here. I'm sorry.
It's Hollywood Boulevard, the sidewalk. And see, there's the record one down there on the left. No, that's not an ashtray, which is what I thought it was when I first saw it many years ago. I said, oh, that's the ones that the cigarette sponsors sponsor. But no, it's a record with an arm, back when we used to have those.
Mhm.
And of course, the movie camera for the movies and the TV for the TV. And I forget what the other ones are. But anyway, they make famous people. Jan, my current pay is 0. I am a retired bum. Okay. So, well, that's, and good point, Julia. That's the thing. Lots of people who were prominent in various areas of showbiz got more than 1 star, one for each of their talents. Anyway, well, now somebody said, Jan again said, I was watching a bit about the #1 songs of the year and amazed how many were from movies. Well, you have to remember, in the old days, having the best song from a movie was a ticket to pop record and radio success. Now, that kind of music isn't their business. But, and for a long time, the soundtrack records of movies disappeared. I remember I used to go downtown to what we call Little Tokyo, down near Union Station and Dodger Stadium and all that. And they had a couple of Japanese record stores, and the Japanese would put out soundtrack records of big Hollywood movies that Hollywood wouldn't even put out in this country. But you could go there and get it. I remember going to one of them, and the joy of dialect and transliteration. They had the music from Dr. Zhivago. And according to the English language writing on this totally Japanese album, the song was called, are you ready? Rara's theme instead of Lara's theme. So,
Wow.
And I mean records from big composers, John Williams,
Yep.
Jerry Goldsmith. Oh, by the way, I haven't seen it yet, but I wonder if anybody out there has, as long as we're talking music. I am told, Lauren was mentioning when we were doing Genre Guys, that this new documentary about John Williams that's just come out on, I guess on Disney Plus, is really good, I'm told. And it should be, because he is. But anyway, so you're going to tell us all about the Walk of Fame.
Yes. So it started out as an idea by E.M. Stewart of the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce, who was its volunteer president in 1953. The original idea being that maintain the glory of a community whose name means glamour and excitement in the 4 corners of the world.
Which is a nice way of saying, let's remember who the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce is.
Please.
It's all the people that own the stores and restaurants and souvenir places up there on the boulevard. And they would like more bodies walking down that sidewalk because they might buy something. So this was a way to turn what was a street that happened to have a famous name into an attraction all by itself. And it worked.
Absolutely. A committee was formed to flesh out the idea. An architectural firm was retained to develop specific proposals. By 1955, the basic concept and general design had been agreed upon. The plans were submitted to the Los Angeles City Council because obviously Hollywood is kind of it's within Los Angeles
It's a neighborhood. It's not a separate city legally.
Right.
So it's all LA.
Absolutely.
As opposed to, for example, Beverly Hills, which is indeed a totally separate legal entity. Culver City, where MGM is a separate legal entity. So you have to, there's LA City, there's LA County, there's all these unincorporated areas that eventually become incorporated, like West Hollywood. And then there's the mind's eye, which is Hollywood Boulevard.
Now, it's interesting going over the design of the stars themselves. How do they actually agree upon that design? It's interesting. The inspiration is debated between 2 different sources, one being the Hollywood Hotel, and that the original structure back at that time had, I guess, a dining room in which above the dining room on the ceiling were the names of the Hollywood stars or Hollywood actors and actresses within star designs. Some people say that was what inspired the look of these stars. Others say that it was apparently Sugarman's Tropics restaurant drinks menu that had the celebrity photos framed in stars. Sugarman being part of this effort in order to bring the Hollywood Walk of Fame to life. It's interesting. I guess you can go with your version as to where these star designs actually came from. Apparently, they were going to be. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you have to remember MGM's slogan was that we have more stars than there are in heaven. So,
yes, I like that. I like that origin, Lou. We're bringing him down to earth, and now you can walk over him.
Yeah. If you're lucky, they only walk.
Yeah. So you have this this kind of terrazzo design in which you have kind of this brownish design for the star up against like a black
I wouldn't
background.
call it. It's more red than anything else. It's kind of fake terrazzo red.
Yeah, that's probably
Pink,
more accurate.
Whatever.
Apparently, the original design was going to feature a blue star on a brown background with a caricature of the honoree placed inside. So instead of these kind of these brass appointments that Lou just went over. Oh, go ahead.
But the precedent for the character stuff is Sardi's in New York, which is a restaurant right in the heart of the theater district that had all these caricatures of all the stars. If you got your face on the wall at Sardi's, you would have arrived. And then the Brown Derby did that here. The Hollywood Brown Derby, not the one looks like a hat, which is down on Wilshire, or was.
Gotcha.
Anyway, yeah, the Hollywood Brown Derby was right on Vine, just below, between Sunset and Hollywood. So,
and apparently they dropped the caricature idea because it was a little bit too difficult to design with the technology of the day. But you can kind of think of having to do that for each individual star. That might get complicated pretty fast. They agreed upon a kind of set design in which you would honor the recipients by what they were known for. So that's where you get the kind of the brass representations of, whether they were in film, radio, music, and so forth. And then the blue star brown background idea was actually vetoed by Charles E. Toberman, legendary real estate developer known as Mr. Hollywood, as the colors clash with the new building that he was erecting on Hollywood Boulevard. Real estate wins again.
By the way, Jan Monroe says the idea that Fred Astaire was the best-selling singer for multiple years in the 30s. You do know, or maybe you don't, Jan, that when Fred was being scouted by Hollywood, they did a screen test and they looked at his stuff. And the official word on Fred Astaire was balding, short, can't sing, can't act, dances a little. That was the statement of the talent scout. So sometimes they get
the most
wrong.
prolific on-screen dancer ever.
Yeah.
It's wild. Well, you talk about talent scouts, and there was a committee formed in the 1950s to figure out who the first round of recipients would actually be. And I believe they settled upon 1,558 honorees. Selected by committees representing the four major branches of the entertainment industry at the time: motion pictures, television, audio recording, and radio. Now listen to these names and see if you recognize anybody. You have Walter Lantz.
Yep.
Max
Does everybody out there know who Walter Lantz was?
Go ahead.
Dead silence. Without Walter Lantz, there would be no Woody the Woodpecker. He was one of the other great animators of Hollywood, and a talented man indeed. Although I always loved the story many years after his death, when I think it was either Matsushita or one of the other Japanese electronics companies was deciding fairly late to get into the PC business to compete with IBM and Apple and everybody. Back when there were fewer brands, there weren't, all the Lenovo's of the world. And so they wanted to make Americans aware of their being in this business. And they thought we should get a spokes character who's American, that Americans recognize. But of course, they picked them based on some abstract standard of fame, not really understanding what the character was. And so they paid a lot of money to the Lance estate to use Woody Woodpecker as their star. And the first ad that was going to run in America, they never ran by the American marketing department. They did it in Japan. And it lasted about as fast as it took to yank it back again after they put it in newspapers and magazines all across the country. And it was a picture of a laptop with Woody standing there smiling and pointing at it. And it said, "Meet Woody, your new internet pecker." Yes, it did.
Really?
Yes, it really, really did. You look around, you can find the ad. So they didn't quite get it.
Wow, that's really something. Well, the committee members were also made up of Max Sennett.
Yeah. You know who he is, everybody? Famous comedic director of all kinds of great silent movies.
Oh.
Next.
Hal Roach.
Also, classic producer, director of Silence originally.
Jesse L. Lasky.
Yes. Jesse L. Lasky, Paramount.
Oh. Samuel Goldwyn.
We know who he is, the G in MGM.
Mm-hmm. Cecil B. DeMille.
Yeah.
And last but certainly not least, Walt Disney.
Yeah.
That's part of that first committee right there. And somebody asking in the chat about Brown Derby stories. Well, guess what? Guess where they actually met in order to select the recipients for the Hollywood Walk of Fame, at least the original initial recipients, that is. Well, it'd be at the Hollywood Brown Derby. That's where they met and selected these names. So there's a Brown Derby story for you. Pretty cool right there. Did not know that Walt Disney was actually involved in the first, committee that actually decided all this. That's pretty cool as well. Now
that, wait a minute though. That's not on the left, the Brown Derby they met at. The ones interior are. That Brown Derby is down across from the Ambassador Hotel at, let's see, it would be Wilshire and Vermont, I guess. But the one in Hollywood was like a block off Hollywood Boulevard on Vine and didn't have the Derby. The one down on the lower left there, the Spanish-looking one. That's the Brown Derby.
Gotcha. This one right here?
Yeah.
Okay. I always get that confused too.
Yeah, I think there was one more somewhere, and I can't remember where, but those were the two. I know my mother, who was an actress in the day, said everybody used to go and hang out at the Brown Derby and then have themselves paged so that when they walked across the room to go answer the phone, the various producers and directors would see the comely young things and think, she might be good in my next movie. I don't know if it ever worked. They used to do the same thing at the pool at the Beverly Hills Hotel. So.
And we'll have to do a show where we talk about the history of the Brown Derby, because I think that'd be kind of cool. There's definitely a lot of notable things that actually happened at the various sites and, well, recreated as well at Disney MGM Studios, now Disney's Hollywood Studios, at least a version of it. So that'll be gotta mark that on the list. Well, and
of course, the Brown Derby was famous for inventing the Cobb salad.
Yes.
And it's funny, some of the things that food is tied to. For example, there was a famous opera diva named Lily Melba, Melba, And she was famous, aside from her singing, for her weight fluctuations. And so 2 famous dishes were named after her because they allegedly were created for her. One, which is peaches and sugar and syrup and cream, is peach Melba for when she was putting on weight. And the other, of course, is Melba toast, which she ate to lose weight. So there you go.
Wow. That's interesting. It's kind of like the almost reminds me a little bit of the drink me potions in Alice in Wonderland.
Yes.
One to make you
big. But anyway,
the
Cobb salad allegedly was created when it was late and they were out of everything, and somebody came in wanting something, and the owner, whose name was Cobb, threw together whatever they had left in the kitchen that night, and that's how the salad got avocado in it and other things. So there you go.
Fantastic. Oh, I love that. That is awesome. Again, we'll have to do a longer show on that.
Food?
So once everything was approved, once everything was finalized, construction of the walk began in 1958, but 2 lawsuits delayed the completion. First lawsuit was filed by local property owners challenging the legality of the $1.25 million tax assessment, equivalent to about $13 million in 2023, levied upon them to pay for the walk, along with new street lighting and trees. In October 1959, the assessment was ruled legal. Welcome to California, folks. The second lawsuit, filed by Charles Chaplin Jr., sought damages for the exclusion of his father, whose nomination had been withdrawn due to pressure from multiple quarters.
Charlie was accused, I don't believe accurately, of being a commie in the 50s. And so they didn't want him in there for that reason. They were worried about the blacklist. So anyway.
Yeah, with Walt Disney on the
Ryan, it's all absolutely true. And if you're ignorant, that's your problem. No, but anyway.
Yeah. So Walt Disney, you'll note that he was part of a group at the time with John Wayne and others who were looking to reaffirm Hollywood as kind of an American institution filled with American values. And so I could kind of see how something like that might happen with Chaplin, especially with those allegations out there. Chaplin's suit was dismissed in 1960, paving the way for completion of the project. Now, where did the Grammys come into all of this?
Yeah,
this is very fascinating. So, a requirement stipulated by the original Audio Recording Committee, and later rescinded, specified minimum sales of 1 million records or 250,000 albums for all music category nominees. The committee soon realized that many important recording artists would be excluded from the walk by that requirement, and as a result, the National Academy of Recording Arts and Sciences was formed to create a special award for the music industry, leading to the first Grammy Awards in 1959. So the Grammys have their roots in Hollywood, literally via the Walk of Fame. So that's kind of how all that happened.
You notice how everybody puts Academy and Sciences in their group's name because they didn't think it was legit without that. So they give one token award to somebody who invents a new lens or a microphone or something, and now we're scientists. Honest, take us seriously. Not just a bunch of hard-drinking, oversexed lefties, whatever.
Probably
thinking about it. Wait, seriously now for a minute, Vash.
Please.
One of my favorite moments in the sadly defunct attraction at Epcot of Horizons is when Dreamfinder says, "Oh, what about science?" To say that it takes creativity and imagination to do science, not just art, and it does. So, that was the first time they acknowledged that rather than used it to legitimize something. And, when you put something in to make something you're doing seem more legitimate, you obviously have your own doubts about whether it is.
Yeah.
So,
that is true. And we've talked about, actually, on this show, how science is definitely part of the creation process when it comes to cinema, film, television, all of that. How it's kind of
well, yeah, that's true. But what
linked.
I'm saying is the flip, which is if you can't imagine something first, you can never do it in reality, in science as well as in art or anything else.
That's true. You
yeah,
gotta
it
imagine.
is. SG's and Jen are asking about, is that why Chaplin basically got kicked out of the country? Well, they wanted him to testify, and he didn't want to, and so he got the heck out. And they were going to arrest him, which really would have been terrible, because, of course, remember, as much as America was the land where he made his success, he was born in England, so, and they were going to play with questioning his immigration status to try and get him out. So,
Yeah,
Switzerland.
That's another show we have to probably do, and one that is not maybe as fun as some of the topics that we actually feature here on the show regularly. The kind of the blacklist, the Red Scare that really went through Hollywood and kind of changed things, and it sets us up for contemporary things like Gina's lawsuit, for example. So that's probably something we have to touch on.
Well, and Charlie Chaplin in particular was not exactly beloved for the fact that he seemed to date and marry very young women, and they thought that was scandalous in the 50s too. So, yeah.
That's a really interesting thing as well, because I know there were allegations of some stuff going on with like Disney's animators in particular, like in the 1930s and 20s and so forth. It's an interesting.
Look, this was a business, especially in the 20s and the 30s and 40s, where people who did not labor the way most working people did could make insanely huge sums of money. Now, I'm not saying they weren't worth it. I think they were worth every penny. I mean, when you had some of the greatest writers, for example, on contract, doesn't mean they turned out great stuff as movies necessarily, but they made more money being on a $5,000 a week contract with MGM than they did for some of the greatest novels and pieces of history, and also musicians. In fact, that book I keep touting on here goes into that in a great deal. City of Nets. Anyway.
Before we leave the Hollywood Walk of Fame, I think there's one in particular person that we have to
Johnny.
The
man in the middle,
Grant.
sitting next to Gene Kelly. I guess that is on the left. Johnny Grant was the face of the Walk and the Chamber of Commerce for a long time. He was a local columnist and radio guy, and he also was behind the Hollywood annual Christmas parade, which was a lot of fun. I used to go to it. It was more local than national stars, although there were some that obviously are both. But they'd have a local DJ or newsreader or whatever, in an open convertible with Santa Claus up in front of him and a band on Hollywood. Usually they did it on the weekend of Thanksgiving, like on that Friday or Saturday night after Thanksgiving, as a way to kind of start the shopping season for Christmas. Anyway, but Johnny was there at pretty much every one of those installations of the star. So
he was also the person responsible for like getting the stars to actually accept their stars during via a ceremony on Hollywood Boulevard, and I think that kind of
he made a rule that
it.
said if you won't show up in person, you don't get it. And that, of course, was to make the event more newsworthy, so people all across the world would see a picture in their local paper of whoever it was getting their star.
Right. And that really became a point of pride, obviously, for the committee, but also for the Hollywood Walk of Fame itself, and everything like that. Really legitimized it, I think, in the minds of the public. And so Grant was very responsible for that. Also, too, he was also responsible for a lot of the revitalization effort that occurred along Hollywood Boulevard.
Because it had gotten kind of crummy.
Yeah.
And
Urban
still
decay
is
period.
to some degree. I used to jokingly but seriously say that if you went back tomorrow or next week or next month, it didn't matter how long, even very short, it was always worse. It was always dirtier. It was always... And then, of course, and I'm not sure, I don't know if it started on the West Coast or in New York, but these people that dress up like the superheroes to extort money from people to get their picture taken with them. And if you read any of the police books of Joseph Wambaugh, he talks about how when like two supermen would get into a big fight because one of them claimed that that's my corner to stand on, and no, it isn't. And it still is a little,
it's a little seedy. It's a little, you just,
because it's so strange because of course on Hollywood Boulevard, you have the Chinese and the El Capitan and the Egyptian. These stars are right in front of them. All of these great old buildings with great history and great classic, well, I wouldn't call it classic. Let's call it promotional, expositional architecture. And yet in front of them is, a bum trying to tell you to pay him because he's dressed in the world's worst Batman suit, So anyway, or because he is dressed as Wonder Woman. And Hollywood Boulevard is a strange place. It's a zoo. Even without the stars, it would be a curiosities of human beings attraction nowadays. But because remember, most of the studios are not in Hollywood. Paramount is kind of, as far as the big studios, and Columbia was kind of on the fringes, and but that's about it. Everything else is in the Valley or West LA or other points around the area. So as we explored in that endless trek we took in several episodes ago, if you didn't see that, you should go back and find it.
The TMZ, the 30-mile zone.
Yeah.
Really interesting to get the lay of the land for.
But look at that. Where did they take as the center of the 30-mile zone? Answer: Hollywood and Vine. So, and by the way, Vine Street basically was famous because it had lots of television. ABC's original headquarters was there. NBC's, before they moved to Burbank, was at Vine and Sunset. And the most famous record store, a guy named Eli Wallach. Not Eli Wallach. What am I saying? Eli Wallach. Gotcha. Lou Wallach's. It's Music City. Sunset and Vine was their radio commercial. And it was one of those old-time radio record stores where you had those booths where you could listen to the record before you bought it. And they had like 20 of them, 30 of them, much bigger than anybody else's. So that was kind of a fun place. And then further down was ABC's Hollywood studio. And across from that was the Hollywood Ranch Market, which was a kind of a produce and meat stand. And there was a little studio in there where Steve Allen started his show way back when. And what else was there? Well, lots of stuff. By the way, do you have pictures of the Hollywood and Vine, not stars, but they took the corner and put in these big circles with the Apollo astronauts as part of the Walk of Fame. Maybe you can find it.
Oh, did they? I did not. Let me see here. I can bring any of those up right now.
Because that certainly makes you a star if you walk on the moon.
I guess so. Oh, you're talking about this?
Yeah.
Yeah. I love how they got the TV award. because it was a television event, that's for sure. I did not know that existed. That's a pretty cool. That's pretty cool to receive that. Very, very cool. You can actually see this kind of loose Google Maps view of sort of the area.
That's the El Cap right there under your cursor.
Right. El Capitan Theater, now owned by Disney. The
Chinese?
TCL, Chinese Theater. Yeah, the Chinese. And the Hollywood Walk is along this corridor right here. And it's pretty cool to actually see not only who is there, but also where they're placed. Some of that has some significance, especially around this area, because it's owned by Disney, El Capitan. You get a lot of Disney names here specifically. I think there's one that honors the 50th anniversary of Disneyland, interestingly enough, around this area as well.
And that lower roof beyond the El Cap building was a American Legion Hall that became the theater where Jimmy Kimmel is.
Yep.
That one with the columns, yeah.
Yep. That's the one right there. So really, really interesting, the profound
And that's
history.
Hollywood High School behind it, where you see the football field, where supposedly some of the stars were discovered.
Wow.
What they were doing, discovering, I don't know. And occasionally, when Kimmel's having a big rock star, they put a big tent up in that parking lot where you see it saying Jimmy Kimmel there on the right.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I parked behind there before.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting. But yeah, that's kind of how the Hollywood Walk of Fame became a deal, but it also signified the start of the Grammys. Now, the Grammy name is interesting because apparently originally they were thinking about going with the phonograph as the symbol of this kind of award for music artists in particular. They were going to call it the Eddie for Thomas Edison, which is interesting. But they settled on the Grammy for the gramophone. Yeah, and that was, I think they went with that one, if I could speculate a little bit, because that was probably one of the first widespread methods by which you can actually listen to and hear recorded music. I don't know if the phonograph was as popular. Maybe you have some thoughts on that, Lou.
Well, of course, most people knew that image of the record player with the horn from the RCA logo of his master's voice, where the dog is listening to that record and thinking it's the real thing as his master's voice, hence the perfect sound fidelity of an RCA record player. If you got that somewhere, probably. It's I think it's a Dalmatian, if I remember right. And
yes. Oh, okay. I see what you're talking about right here. That the one?
Let's see. Well, yeah, right there in the middle of the record.
Right. Okay. That's interesting. I never really picked up on that.
Well, the slogan was his master's voice. And the idea was that the dog thought it was his master because it was such a perfect reproduction of his voice.
That's fantastic. I love that story. That's great, right there. But yeah, so you've got the gramophone, which it was a German American inventor by the name of Emil Berliner in 1887. Berliner's method for making records involved coating a zinc disc with a mixture of beeswax and gasoline, and etching the grooves in the disc with a stylus. So that's kind of a little bit of history on that. Now, what's interesting is I believe there have been a little over 7,500 recipients of the Grammys, the Grammy Awards, that is. And to be fair, they usually recognize only, what do you want to say? North American prolific recording artists.
Well,
so if you're looking, Lou, you were just listening to some guys from Japan. They might not be included in the Grammy
But
award
they're so
celebration.
good.
I know, right? So
there's a little bit of we can't play it, but if you want to put the link to my favorite Japanese guys.
Yes, let me go ahead and get that for the.
If this doesn't cheer you up someday when you need it, nothing will. It's these guys. This guy was originally a martial artist who then turned that into a style of dance, and all the music is his, the dance is his. It's the older looking guy with glasses in the middle of the group. I forget his name now, but the group is called World Order, and here's their song. Have a nice day.
And you can see Have a Nice Day in the comment section right there. Leave a link to Lou's video that he shared with me. Pretty fun stuff. But that, I think, is the big hole there, is that a lot of international recording artists and so forth may not be recognized in the same way.
They're paying the bills.
Yeah, that's true.
We have BAFTA for the British version of the Oscars, and the French Academy, and let them make their own.
That's yeah, that's a fair point. It's a fair point. So these awards are kind of cool, the history of them. I guess there's one company in Colorado that makes all the Grammys, and I think apparently there was like a initial designs featured lead in order to kind of make the awards themselves, and apparently the strength of that wasn't as good, so in the 1990s they actually revitalized the whole design to make it a little bit bigger, broader, and less susceptible to wear and tear.
Because of course we are all bigger and broader in the 1990s
yes,
than we were in the 50s or whatever.
Right. And so there's like a new zinc mixture for that. Anyway, I didn't know this, but apparently all the Grammys that you actually see on the broadcast itself are all kind of prop Grammys.
Well, that's because if they put the name on them, they'd give it away.
There you go.
That's true with the Oscars too. You have to have them engraved afterwards.
Oh, okay.
They're not exactly props, but they're
sure
stand-ins for the eventual product, so to speak. And of course, Oscars are called that because somebody said it looks like my Uncle Oscar, and it's stuck.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah.
Very interesting. And we know a little bit about these trophies and how they're actually distributed out, because remember that there was that scandal a few months ago, Lou. Do you remember this with the Emmys?
Yeah.
And Disney?
Yeah.
Whoops. So people could take advantage of some of these things. But
well, of course, the more scandal and disrepute, the less valuable getting a real one becomes. So
yeah,
such is life.
Yeah.
Such is life.
That's why you have to preserve.
Somebody asked in the chat whether Hollywood Boulevard could ever be any chance of it being cleaned up.
Yes,
and they've tried a couple of times, but nobody really, it's probably a bigger attraction the way it is. And the cops keep a pretty tight lid on things. So those crazy costume people tend to beat each other up, not the tourists. So
now, stuttering guitarist, you actually bring up Metallica. That's interesting. Didn't Metallica recently perform at the Grammys? It was one of the first metal artists to be recognized in that way at the Grammy ceremony, and they were on stage with Lady Gaga, and I believe James Hetfield, the lead guitarist and vocal singer for Metallica, his mic was not operable during a lot of that performance. I remember that distinctly, and James was none too pleased. Apparently he created quite a stir backstage after that whole thing because he was so incensed at that performance there. Don't know whose fault it was, but that's a really interesting thing there. Some
Well,
notable.
Metallica has another wonderfully strange tie to Hollywood, you know.
Well, go
Or
ahead.
do you know? Well, if you'd like to hear it, here's the link to the sound. They famously love a movie I love and think is perhaps one of the top 5 or 10 movies ever made, let alone Westerns. And that is The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And the big
Yes.
song at the end is The Ecstasy of Gold. And Metallica recorded it, an Ennio Morricone spaghetti Western theme recorded by an all-American heavy metal band. Go figure. And
That's
it's
awesome.
great. And they
It
play
is
it at every
good.
concert. Yes.
Oh, the Ecstasy of Gold is awesome. But they start every single concert with it. It's man, it just amps you up so much when you actually hear it live.
If I hum the theme, will we get dinged?
No. I think you're.
So
I think you're fine.
it's the one, folks. It's the one that goes da 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 da, and it's that big triple shootout between Eli Wallach and Clint Eastwood and Lee Van Cleef, and it's all about the ecstasy of gold. Anyway, which is
So good.
gold statuettes. So there you go. The world comes full circle on our show. It always does. And if it doesn't, we kick it and bend it and twist it until it does.
Yeah, Metallica went nuts when Jethro Tull won Best Metal Band. Yeah, I think they were the first recipients, like you were saying, stuttering guitarist in the chat there. The first recipients of an award for a metal band was Jethro Tull. Yeah, that's probably not great stuff there. Also, Metallica also did a song on.
Hey, at the very beginning of our show today, who was it? Was it Jan? Was asking for a movie that nobody talks about, but that's great and that she probably hadn't seen.
Yep.
And here we are with Mark Knopfler. They mentioned Princess Bride, studying guitarist, but the great Mark Knopfler soundtrack to me is one that I believe you've now done on this channel. That was one of our early genre guy movies, and that is my favorite, wonderful, charming, and it's Scotland and the strange things that happen there, and it's got Peter Riegert, and it's got Burt Lancaster and a mermaid and all kinds of other wonderful stuff. And Knopfler did the music, so there you go. Now, what have you got a list of all the ones you've done? I want to see if you've done it yet or not. But
I don't have a master list. I don't think. Let's see here. Let's see if I can bring up the channel and just do a search on the channel.
Local Hero is the name, by the way. And
I don't think we've done it yet.
Oh, well, we have, so catch up, damn it. It's a wonderful, wonderful, charming, delicate, beautiful movie. Beautiful, beautiful movie. Let's see.
Let me see if it's coming up here. Making sure here. Yeah, Local Hero doesn't come out for a couple of weeks, so we have coming
but
up.
But that
we have
doesn't keep
Demolition
you
Man.
from finding the movie and watching it. But gosh,
Demolition Man, Gunga Din, Battlefield Earth, and Local Hero. So right after
there you
that.
go.
So that's what's going on there.
Oh yeah.
So it's coming. Not here yet.
And
though.
that's a great. Just wait. Let me find. As long as we're giving people links to stuff we, for stupid reasons, can't do.
Here's the Ecstasy of Gold, by the way. If you guys wanted this. Oh, I just had it. I lost it. Okay, give me a second, guys. There you go. Ecstasy of Gold right there. Also, too, Metallica. The song Creeping Death from the album Ride the Lightning actually was inspired by the Ten Commandments and what actually happened in that film. which is really cool. So,
And I
you know,
just
if you
sent
like
you
the,
the link if people want to go hear the local hero theme by Mark Knopfler. It's called Going Home. And gosh, that movie will make you feel good about everything, even when the real world doesn't agree.
there we go. Go ahead and put that in the chat as well, right there.
Yeah.
There you go. You got some material for you. Good stuff there. And I think all of this...
We found a way. We found a way. The great quest for a way to accompany these shows with music without breaking the stupid rules. There you go. It just
put it in the chat and have people listen.
Well, it's like the early sound movies, like where there was a record player that was synced to the projector. So
there you go. I've seen some people when they do watch along parties, what they'll do is they'll get the DVD or the Blu-ray and they'll pause it at a certain timestamp, you know?
Yeah.
Like, oh, we're at 12 seconds and then we're gonna play it at 3, 2, 1, go. That's kind of how they get around with that. So there are ways. There are creative ways. But all this talk of the Grammys and so forth, well, that brings us to the present day.
Oh my God.
Via a big announcement from the Walt Disney Company, Disney will be the new home for the Grammys starting in 2027. The biggest night in music has been on CBS for over 50 years. The 10-year deal includes simulcast streaming rights on ABC, Hulu, and Disney Plus. We also
and by the way, this is historic for another reason.
Please.
This might be the first time in the history of Bob Iger's management of Disney where they've bought a franchise that's already been ruined, as opposed to ruining it themselves. I know. I got nothing against any of these. What the hell?
Sure.
But all of these awards things, the more the scandals happen and the more the people are combative, the less the audience wants to bother to watch. So that's a shame.
Yes. I agree. I agree with you. We'll go over the article here, and I want to get your comments, Lou, on all of this. Disney has snatched the rights to the annual music awards show in a 10-year deal, a major loss for Paramount. The Grammys will air on ABC, Hulu, and Disney Plus from 2027 as part of the deal, taking it through to 2036. Go ahead.
If they're still around by then. Let me explain something, folks. You don't snatch the rights. You agree to pay more than the other people think they're worth.
Yes.
That's how you snatch rights in Hollywood. And don't misread that with that word. But even then, that's true there too. Paying more than other people will.
To provide a little history here, CBS had previously struck a 10-year deal in 2016 to keep the rights through 2026, breaking the record for a broadcast partnership between an awards show and broadcaster. The network has been home to the awards since 1973, when it snapped up the rights from ABC.
Ooh.
Like you said, outbidding them, which aired the show in 1971 and 1972. NBC previously aired it between 1959 and 1970. 1959 being the first official, I believe, Grammys. We just went over the history there. Very interesting stuff. Dana Walton also had some comments on this. As the Walt Disney Company combines forces with the Recording Academy to open this exciting new chapter in the history of the Grammys, we do so with pride and gratitude, said Walton. Live events have never been more important to our culture and industry, and we just acquired one of the crown jewels, adding to our portfolio of world-class programming across all genres. Is it really a crown jewel, Lou?
They have pride.
Pride.
We're so proud that you took our money. I mean, does anybody ever think these things through? Or they just pull out the words they think are going to make them sound noble and wonderful? Pride and thank you for taking our millions of dollars. How many was it? Did they say?
I don't know if they actually said the number. It's got to be a huge number, though. Let's see here. If we actually get an actual number here. Combines forces with the Recording Academy. Exciting new chapter, Grammys. That's interesting. I actually don't have a number here. I'll have to look that up, and if I can find one, I'll go ahead and include it here. That's for sure. But Disney ultimately submitted the winning bid.
It's interesting that they didn't.
That is interesting. I never really put that together, Lou. But you're right. Why wasn't the price actually detailed? Interesting. Well, we have heard, like, from the likes of Netflix and so forth, that the streaming of live events on these streaming platforms has become a bigger deal.
It's a big number. Quote unquote, more than 500 million.
Whoa.
Over 10 years.
That's a bit of scratch right there. You could fund an entire Captain America 4 with that.
I was going to say one Avengers movie. You didn't pay for the ad in pub. They just keep saying over. They don't give you the exact number.
Interesting.
Which makes me why they kept it on. Well, I'll tell you, if they're just giving a general number instead of specific, there are escalator clauses based on ratings somewhere in that contract. You see, there's a base floor, and then if they do over this, you pay that much more. Because the theory is, if you do that well, you're getting more from the advertisers. So that goes through to the rights owner.
Sure.
Some of them.
And speaking of advertisers, live events, and so forth, this now marks the third major event to be under the Disney banner starting in 2027. ABC will air the Grammys, the Oscars, and Super Bowl 61. Yeah, 61.
And the Disney Legends and the Disney whatever. I just don't know that there's going to be an ever-growing market of people. Well, like you said, I gave you that link to those great Japanese guys.
Sure.
Where did I find that? Just randomly on YouTube. I wasn't searching for anything. It just showed up.
Yeah.
And now I've watched all of their videos on YouTube. And that video, by the way, that I put up there that you have is 10 years old. So they're not going to be, they used to say about the Oscars that if you got one, your price on your next picture went up.
Yeah.
Because when, you'll notice even now with appropriate copyright numbers in the corner, every time somebody who's ever won an Oscar or even been nominated, when they do ads for the movie, starring Oscar winner so-and-so, as a enhancement to say, oh, we have pre-vouched. The fact that you got an Oscar nomination has now become the equivalent of a good notice on Yelp.
Yeah, a Disney Legends Award, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting, Lou. I think you bring up a great point here. We just talked about the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and I would argue that the recipients for the Hollywood Walk of Fame, at least now, I mean, a lot of them are notable for their history and body of work, and that's fine. But I would argue that how do we recognize fame in the modern age, like you said, Lou, when people are discovering things through YouTube through these?
See, there's a history here.
Sure.
Back at the origin of the movies, there were no credits. And the people who got popular, for example, the It Girl, the Biograph Girl, they never gave their names. But there was a precedent before that in baseball. Do you know the numbers on the back of baseball players' uniforms were not there at the beginning because they thought, geez, if they get famous, they're going to want more money. So let's not do that. And now these things are all enshrined in all these contracts. When you watch these dramas about the actors are on strike or whatever, you're seeing the big issues, but there's a lot of little ones in that contract too. Take my word for it. And things about credits and who gets mentioned. I'll give you a big example from when I was involved with the Directors Guild more directly. Remember when TV started shrinking the credits of, let's say, a movie and shoving them over to one side and running them by very fast,
right?
In order to get to the next show, because they knew that people start changing channels during credits. Yeah. Well, there are certain things in those credits that are obligated to be shown as far as their size on the screen and how long, and they were breaking those rules, and there was all kinds of legal fights. So this stuff, has a value, but at a certain point, that value diminishes. And to keep charging as if it's valuable, just like paying $500 million, I don't know. I don't know if I'd make that investment. I mean, the obvious question is, while they're showing the Grammys, what are you going to put on instead, and will you make money? And I will tell you that there's a whole lot of people who could care less who gets an Emmy or a Grammy or an Oscar. And the ones who care will watch and the other ones won't. And like that. So.
It's interesting. It's kind of, okay, so how relevant are these award shows, first of all? Because like you said, Lou, I think taking away from that, it's interesting where fame comes from now. And
but what gets done is often, well, we've always done it.
Yeah.
That's as far as they think it through as to its actual value. So
there's
So we have,
Mm-hmm.
because in the old days, nobody ever reported the amount of money. Never.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And nobody really cared in the average public what something cost to show, or if they wanted to watch it, they wanted to know what night is that on, and that's it. But now we will have an objective measure, because at the end of those 10 years, just like we check these British tax numbers to see how much a movie costs and get it wrong. But there will be an actual number, because these are public companies. They will tell you, well, we made X number of dollars for advertising on the Grammys. And that doesn't count the positive PR of the general network being seen as prestige because it carried them. So that's a number they can play with. But at the end of the day, they can say, did we make our 500 million plus interest back? And if they didn't, maybe the next 10-year contract will at least be for less. If not, well, whoever wants to, go ahead. We don't want to.
Yeah, I don't know how viable these award shows are in the modern era, with so many more people tuning out from them rather than tuning in. I don't think it's a platform problem or a medium problem in which, well, if we just put it on streaming, then it'll be big. I don't think that's quite how that works.
And different organizations have different priorities.
Sure, absolutely.
For example,
Mm-hmm.
my own home guild, although I've been in several, the Directors Guild. When we do our nominations for Best Picture, let's say, it isn't just of the director. It's the director and what we call the director's team, which is the unit production manager and the assistant directors. So, and they all get an award if it wins. But they all, at our awards show, get an award for being nominated. Just for being on the team of a movie that was deemed good enough to get. Are we having the same problem we always have around this time of day? There we go. It's picking up again. I was looking at a freeze. But anyway, no, maybe I still am. Oh, that'll be a heck of a note, won't it? Am I still on?
You're still on. You're still on.
Okay, because I saw my screen freezing and I wasn't quite sure why. Anyhow.
You're fine.
The thing is, it's about the audience giving a damn. It's not about the executives having a micturating match. There, I'll clean it up for you too. Over who got the Grammy rights. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So anyway.
Well, it's definitely been more corporatized. Obviously, you have multiple agendas attempting to be pushed by a vast array of different entities, right? And so I think that has kind of perversed it quite a bit. There are things that are just recognized, and you're just going like, what? Like, who was ever interested in that? Why are we recognizing this specific thing? And then you have popular things that aren't recognized at all. Especially we see that in the Oscars a lot. This is why they have a new category, let's say, for
Well, yeah, but the Oscars added the number of people in each category, didn't they? They went from 5 to 8 or 10. I forget which.
yeah.
Well, all that does is dilute the value.
Right.
It doesn't make being nominated more valuable because somebody was going to be, because they had to fill out the roster. And it doesn't make winning more valuable because you're winning from amongst more people who were put on there for motives not about excellence, but about representation. So
right. And you have these different categories now, like, best popular film, for example. And it's like, well, wait a minute, can't that be in the best picture category? Well, no, we have to have the real art pieces up there. Or animation, for example. Now animation has its own category because people were upset that, Up or Beauty and the Beast would be included in best picture when it's animation. It's a whole different medium or whatever. That's crazy stuff. So I think,
and yet animation advocates tell you that an animator is an actor with a pencil. So there you go.
Yeah.
And I see Karen Owen mentioning, yeah, that's true. The Motion Picture Academy just laid off, I think, 150 or more people from their library and archive and museum. Because, we don't need all those people keeping all that old dusty stuff. But in the press release, they announced, well, we have X million artifacts. Aren't we swell? We're just going to let them rot because the guy who used to dust them, we laid off. I don't know. It's a weird world. But the bottom line and the ego line never have met and still don't. So
yeah. That's just that. I suppose. I guess big win for Disney, as everybody's saying, but I'm not sure what they're winning here at this point.
Well, the first question is: was anybody besides Paramount even in the competition? In other words, did NBC say, "Oh, we'll do it if it's this much," or did they just step away from the microphone? So, it's easy to win a one-man race. Whatever you do wins.
That's a great point.
So
that's a great point. We'll keep an eye on the story and see how successful this little enterprise is for Disney. I don't think it'll be that successful, but I don't know. We'll see on the whole Grammy thing there. Well, I think that just about wraps us up here, Lou. Very interesting history, going over a couple of notable things within Hollywood, or Hollywood Walk of Fame. Obviously, people will definitely attribute that to Hollywood, but I don't know about the Grammys. I've never really seen it linked to Hollywood in such a way. The awards are held in Los Angeles every single year, albeit one in Vegas in 2022. But they are done in Los Angeles. Obviously, we went over the history and how it is linked to Hollywood lore and so forth. But I just wanted to go over the history of that for you guys because I thought it was really interesting and definitely fitting for our show. Lou, you talked about the genre guys earlier. You guys have recorded, I believe, at least one. What do you got up on the list?
Oh, next is going to probably be, and I say probably for reasons I can't reveal, we decided to do Hollywood One Day Late with Sleepy Hollow, or Hollywood, because we got out of sync. But our next movie is supposed to be Election, which is that rare thing, a political election movie that won't offend either side because it's not about government, it's about student government. And it was the movie that I think really called the world's attention to Reese Witherspoon. I'm not sure if it was her first film, but it was the first one I remember. And Matthew Broderick. And she's a very unscrupulous little girl who is so disgusted by her lack of morality in doing so that he's trying to find a way to sabotage her without getting himself in trouble. So that's a lot of fun, and that's our next one. And then we have many more, including last week we did a double header so that we have one in the can in case one of the other of us in the holiday season has to be away from the microphone. So we have a a secret favorite of Lauren's and all of ours, and I'm sure of many of you, that I won't reveal, but it's going to be there sooner or later.
I know what it is.
I know you know, but that's
Well, you
because
said it was
you
a
know it
favorite of
all.
Lauren. You said it was a favorite of Lauren's. It's got to be
Oh.
Fifth Element, right? Is that's the one?
No. You get no multipass for that.
If the chat doesn't know, Lauren hates the Fifth Element.
Yes.
It's so funny to hear him talk about it. Just hates that movie. Oh man.
But
You think
it's
he
thanks
would?
to Lauren that we saw Sleepy Hollow. So there you go. He loves
That's
it.
great.
And he loves it in spite of the fact that it had nothing to do with the original Washington Irving story, really, other than the name. But I didn't realize until I thought about it and did a little research that there is a Disney connection to Sleepy Hollow, and that is that the story of the Headless Horseman is part of a 2-featurette feature from Disney, the other half of which is Winnie the Pooh. Or, pardon me, Mr. Toad. Toad
Yes,
of Toad
Mr.
Hall.
Toad. Mhm.
So I forget the name
Yeah,
of
the
the
package
overall.
films, Fun and Fancy Free, and all that. Melody
Fantasy-
Time.
Yeah, right. So, one way or another, 6 degrees of separation kicks in.
It all comes back to Disney, doesn't it? Whether it's the Hollywood Walk of Fame or Sleepy Hollow, it all comes right on back there. Interesting, because I think
You have to remember that part of that is because as big and multi-zillion dollared as it is now, when this thing started, it was, some ex-furriers and grocers trying to make a little extra money by renting out these funny animated movies. And the rest is history. But it was a relatively small business. The fact that we had 6 or 7 major studios instead of 70, which is true of the car business with Ford and Chrysler, and GM, or any of these major industries, usually sort themselves out to 2 or 3 or 4 major competitors who run things. So that's just the nature of how capitalism works. God bless it.
yes. Corporate consolidation, everybody's favorite pastime.
Well, but see, that's I was saying on a show I did with Pro earlier this week about the elections and politics. Believe it or not, we actually did one where we openly said, okay, we're not a political channel, but this is because it's how our culture mixes in with these politics. And
Sure.
As I said, people operate in this country under a basic misunderstanding. And that is that big companies are the strongest against taxes and regulations and government overreach in their business. The answer is no, they love it. Oh, they don't love it, but they love the fact that they uniquely are in a position to pay for dealing with it, as opposed to their younger, more innovative competitors to be coming up behind them who can't get in the game because they can't afford the legal fees. So, that's true in this consolidation thing too.
Yeah. It's kind of like establishing regulation in order to keep others out. In this case,
Yes.
costs and fees
Yes.
and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, not necessarily to keep them out directly, just to make the price of admission higher than they can afford. So.
Oh boy. I was just reminded also too, we have a couple of super chats that I should have recognized before.
Well, let's please do that. Yes.
Absolutely. Ryan Matheson with the 199. Power to the 199. Thank you so much. More Hollywood heydays as told by Lou Washman's Ghost. Yes, absolutely. 100%. And we are so fortunate to have Lou here to provide us with all kinds of stories. Stuff that, when I'm doing prep for the show, I have no idea we're going to go in those directions. So glad Lou is here.
No, neither do I. You understand,
Yes.
folks? The reason we do this live is because we don't rehearse. We don't plan it out in advance. Maybe for 15, 20 minutes before we start. First, I knew this was going to be about the Walk of Fame was 20 minutes before you did.
That's true. Yes.
Only
Because we were going to
knows.
do this. I was like, okay, let's hit on the Grammys because, big story for Disney there. And then it was like, oh, wait a minute. This is linked to the Hollywood Walk of Fame. We haven't done that yet. So if I had more planning, maybe the thumbnail would have been different to reflect that. But
Well,
there you go.
maybe it will change. I don't know.
Perhaps there's
some
an
kind
interesting
of there's
idea
some
there.
kind of line here that I can't quite formulate
Huh?
about judging a book by its cover and judging a live stream by its thumbnail. So anyway,
There you go. Yeah. Oh boy. Oh, the thumbnails. Lou, there's so much about thumbnail science. It's very interesting. Samuel Main here with the $3 super sticker. Thank you so much, Samuel Main. Very much appreciate it. Always very supportive with the guy with the thumbs up there. Very much appreciate it. And thank you so much, everybody, for all the support. Really, really does mean a lot to us. This channel recently hit 3K in terms of subscribers. And we are so thankful that we've hit that milestone right there. Huge for the channel. So if you haven't subscribed yet, please go ahead and subscribe. We're doing all kinds of great stuff here on this channel, producing at least 2 videos a day for you. Also to Hollywood Backlot with Lou and you. If you like this show, hit that subscribe button. And G3PO Live at its new time, live at 5. That's 5 p.m. Eastern, that is, on Thursdays. Very cool stuff. Hopefully everybody got over the time changes here.
well, we changed and the world changed with us, right? With daylight.
Yeah, we were talking about it before the show, and when I was establishing the live stream, I was like, okay, I got to think ahead. So Arizona doesn't change, but everything else does. Got to account for that.
Yeah.
So,
well, not all of Arizona doesn't change.
No, it does not.
The Apaches and the Hopi.
Right.
Navajo.
The Indian reservations, they do change.
Yeah. You can drive along I-40 one day and on the change day and go in and out and in and out of time zones over and over again. All while listening to the Medicine Rock radio station with everything being sung in Navajo.
Yeah.
Hey. I've told the story about the Indian village at Disneyland and how when you turn everything else off and listen to what they're chanting, it sounds like they're chanting, go away, go away, go away. Anyway,
talk about the Indian village in the Rivers of America when you were on the Mark Twain and look at the fireworks. Yeah, that's a great story right there. Awesome stuff. And it does sound like that. That's for sure. But it's fun. Speaking of Disneyland,
now let me think about this. Since the reservation goes over the line into Utah, does that mean in theory you could drive through 3 time zones in the same day? I guess not. They're either one or the other. So
I think it's one or the other.
Yeah.
But it's fun because when we would go to Disneyland in the winter time, which we're going to actually do coming up here in November, early December, going over to California, it feels like you're gaining an hour because you're crossing the line there, and now you get to set your clocks back, and that's kind of a cool feeling that you lose when you come back.
I saw a great meme about setting your clocks, and it said, computer, relax, it does it for you. iPhone, relax, it does it for you. Bedside clock, you should probably be able to figure it out. And then it said the car in the dash, the light, the radio in your dashboard of your car, just live with it for 6 months. It's easier than trying to fight with it.
You can never figure it out.
Make the adjustment in your head. It's too complicated. Hold this button, turn that one, count to 12, turn this one back, do a little dance, make a little noise, get time tonight. I don't know.
What was it? There was a great documentary. Today's Football Sunday, where Bill Belichick, as amazing as a coach as he is, probably the most one of the most lauded due to his records and awards and so forth. There's a documentary I remember watching where he's like, I gotta change the time in his SUV at the time, and he just couldn't figure it out. He's just like, is there a button? Is there something? Just couldn't figure it out. It was so funny. Renowned coach. Anyway, thank you so much for
either way,
joining
play
us.
the music we offered you, and it'll cheer you up over your time set woes.
Yep.
And have a nice day.
And the chat replay will be available. So if you're listening to this afterwards, you should be able to find those links in the chat right there. And if you like this video, please like this video before signing off here. If you haven't subscribed yet, like I said, please subscribe. That definitely does help us out. Turn those bell notifications on so that you know whenever we go live. Also, too, we have an email, g3ponline@yahoo.com. If you have any questions for us that you'd like to us to answer, I should say, go ahead and provide those. We had a couple of submissions actually by somebody, Paul, in the chat, who has given us some information on a whole bunch of stuff. Probably going to feature that on the next show here, talking about 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Nautilus, all kinds of stuff. Lou, we're going to have a great time.
We've gone full circle because Godzilla director's going to make another one, and that's the apotheosis of the rubber monster, going back to the giant squid in 20,000 Leagues.
The giant squid. Oh, such an important little time capsule.
And this is also the week that we saw the modern incarnation at Epic Universe of the rubber creature from the Black.
Yes, a gill man. Didn't know his name before. Now I know. Creature from Black Lagoon, going to be featured as part of the 14 audio animatronics inside of Dark Universe and Epic Universe. Very, very cool. Anyway, for all that and more, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and we will talk to you guys later on the next Hollywood Backlot with Lou and you. Thanks for joining us. We're out.